We are now joined by Dr. Kobi Michael, Senior Research Fellow for the Institute of National Security Studies, with more on this developing story. We're still scratching our heads how at one moment Israelis in the town of Elad were celebrating Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day, and then something like this could just happen so quickly and go by off the radar without being noticed. Could you explain how something like this could happen?
Not surprising at all, unfortunately. We are in a terror campaign that began a month ago, but it was well prepared by by Hamas and its partners. And unfortunately, we still collaborating with the dual strategy of Hamas when they keep calm in the Gaza Street and they ignite all the other fronts on the one hand, and on the other hand, we still hesitate with regard to the security fence. We are not doing a very well job there. And thirdly, we are still keeping the same rules of the game that we used to operate before this campaign has begun. And I think that in order to tackle it more effectively, we have to deal with all the three problems that I have mentioned. We have to stop cooperating with Hamas, which means that we have to deal with Hamas when there are terror attacks in the West Bank. We have to deal with Hamas in the Gaza Strip and beyond the Gaza Strip. And the idea that Yahya Sinwar and Saleh Hawouri is still free and they can behave in the way that they behave is something that should be reconsidered. And we have to deal much more seriously with the security fence, and we have to change the rules of the game with regard to the terrorists themselves. I mean, without doing all of these three things, we will continue facing such terror attacks.
Right. And also, I mean, during the holidays, during Passover, we know that the border of the West Bank and Israel had been, monitored. We know that we've had a lot of incidents over the past month and a half, especially even on the Temple Mount, almost daily. Yesterday, there were skirmishes. Like, how is it that you could explain why there was not more police or security along that border, especially as Jenin is known as a hotbed for grooming terrorists?
Cannot put a policeman or a soldier in each meter. Okay, I mean, this is not the way to tackle the problem or the challenge. We have to deal with the problem systematically, with the system. We have to understand what is the organizing rationale and to tackle the organizing rationale, to tackle the generators of this campaign. And the generators are first Hamas, secondly the security fence, and thirdly all the rules of the game with regard to the terrorists, okay? And therefore, it is not a problem of Elad or it is not a problem of Hadera, because today it is in Elad, tomorrow it will be in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, or in any other city. We have to change we have to tackle the system, the organizing rationale of the system, and mainly the main generator, which is Hamas.
And how do we here in Israel, in tackling the system, how, obviously you are a little bit more knowledgeable about the upper dealings of the upper authorities. Like, how do they come together to come up with a solution to what you're saying, what you're proposing?
First of all, I don't like the term of solution because, there are problems that cannot be resolved, but we can improve the situation dramatically. Terror attacks will be and will continue, but the problem is what would be the scale of the terror campaign. The idea that Yahya Sinwar can appear publicly and threaten threatening Israel and to talk in the way that he talks and to incite and to ignite all the other fronts. The idea that Saleh al-Amouri from Istanbul, from Damascus, or from Beirut can operate all the system, all the terror system of Hamas in the West Bank is something that cannot be tolerated. Those people, mainly these two, but not only these two, should be deep in the bunkers and should afraid on their lives, and they should be targeted by Israel. And Israel has to deal with all the operators of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, beyond the Gaza Strip, and Israel has to show that it doesn't accept all the strategy of Hamas, that on the one hand, they keep calm in the Gaza Strip because they have their interests there in the Gaza Strip, including the cooperation with Israel with regard to the calm agreement there in the Gaza Strip. And on the other hand, they ignite all the other fronts. They incite and they prepare the infrastructures and they recruit the cadres and they do what they do in the compound of Haram Sharif and so on and so forth. I mean, this cannot be tolerated anymore.
And about the suspects themselves, I mean, when we had the incident in Tel Aviv, we had a very clear idea of the direction that the terrorists got away, and we were able to catch him shortly after the fact. But here, they got away in a getaway car. They could be anywhere. How are Israeli authorities able to track down now that we have? It's more than 12 hours since they got away. Does that decrease the chances of tracking these suspects down?
I think that the answers are well known. First of all, it is necessary to clarify that even when you do 100% of efforts, you cannot achieve 100% of success, okay? But I think that we can be much more successful in this regard. And these two that came from Jenin area, they used all the breaches that we have in the security fence, okay? There is a security fence. 20 billion shekels were devoted in order to build this barrier, but there are many flaws, there are many breaches in this security barrier. We have to close all the breaches along the security fence and to maintain the security fence with all the required operations around it, and to do all the possible efforts in order to minimize as much as possible all the free movements from the West Bank to the territories of Israel.
Right.
This is one thing. Secondly, we know that the Jenin area and Nablus area are greenhouses of terrorism, and therefore we have to operate there, and we are doing that. But maybe we have to be much tougher in this regard.
Right.
And thirdly, and this is the most important thing, as I said before, we have to tackle with the generator, the main generator of this terror campaign. And the main generator is Hamas, and mainly the leaders of Hamas. And we have to target the leaders of Hamas. They have to feel that they fear from the Israeli hand, and they cannot operate in such a free manner that they operate in the last month.
Right. And one other question, I mean, with senior Hamas officials right now going to Russia to meet, the foreign minister, this coming after Putin called our Prime Minister Bennett, apologizing for the comments of his foreign minister, wishing Israel a happy Independence Day. How does that contribute, the fact that Hamas is now on their way to Russia to meet with senior officials there?
Not sure that I can see any direct relation, okay? These are two different channels, and Russia traditionally have good relations with Hamas, not because they like Hamas and their ideology, but because this is the way that the Russians can bring themselves to be more relevant in this arena. And this is something which is not related necessarily to Israel or Hamas or to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This is something which is much more related to the relations between the superpowers, between Russia and the United States. And Russia wants to play a relevant or significant role here in the Middle East. And this is one of the channels, one of the ways that they use the events here in the Middle East in order to be more relevant and to compete vis-a-vis the United States.
Mm-hmm. Now, also getting back to what we were saying with, with the border, listen, a lot of people that want to criticize Israel and criticize our need to, our right to defend ourselves. What do you have to say to those people that may now take the headlines and twist it around? Why we need to protect our borders to not allow these things to happen in the future?
First of all, we have to clarify to the entire world or to the international community that we are dealing with barbaric people. Okay, all of these. I mean, not all of the Palestinians, of course, but all of those among the Palestinians who believe that by murdering Jews, by using knives, axes, or any other weapon, they will bring the Palestinian independence or something like that. The idea that they cannot tolerate the existence of the state of Israel here in the region in any borders, okay? It is not a question of territories. This is a question of the right of the Jewish people to have its independence here in the region. And when we have to deal with such barbaric people, we have to deal with them in a way that is different than the ways that you deal with civilized people, okay? This is a very dangerous terror organizations, and unfortunately, this arena is not the single or the only arena that such organizations operate. And in a way that there are many similarities between them and ISIS and Al-Qaeda and some other Jihadiyya, Salafiyya organization. This is the most extreme, violent branches of the Islam. And we have to differentiate between these branches and the other Islam. But we have to deal very strongly with these branches.
Dr. Kobi Michael, thank you very much for that detailed insight. We'll check in with you again at a later time. Thank you very much.